Welcome to Worlds Collide, a wrestling card podcast for wrestling fans by wrestling fans, featuring Tony Vella from WrestlingTradingCards.com.
This is like a stock market.
And Zhan Morning from Wrestling with Cards on YouTube. And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer, I'm just posing the question. Join them as they navigate the world of wrestling cards, helping you build a bigger and better collection and making some money along the way. What's up, wrestling fans and trading card collectors? Worlds Collide back once again. Tony Vella, WrestlingTradingCards.com. Me,
Zhan Morning, Wrestling with Cards.
Parts unknown.
Parts unknown, exactly.
All right, so today we've got an interesting topic. We're going to be talking about the Mount Rushmore of wrestlers to invest in. And I think, the investing word is thrown around, kind of a dirty word to some in both the sports card and wrestling card community. I think people hate talking about the money aspect of it, but I think it's something that's here to stay. It's popular. So what we're going to do.
That, by the way, did you see, speaking of investment and a dirty word, did you see that ongoing thread with David Peck and another guy about?
Yes, absolute ludicrous.
Wasn't it? I mean, it's just ludicrous. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, this person has no idea that, as I've been preaching for years, that cards are stocks.
Yeah,
really
cards of any kind too, like collectibles. Yeah. It's all the same thing.
It's all the same. I just thought it was interesting. We're having this conversation, and recently just saw this ongoing, Twitter war going back and forth of, duck season, rabbit season, duck season, rabbit season.
Yeah, so if you got, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're probably following David, but if not, go follow David Peck. I think it's DPeck100 on Twitter, I think is his handle. Yeah. And you can go back and scroll through and check out that conversation, or just reach out and ask him about it. I'm sure he could send you some screenshots if you don't want to scroll or something, because it is definitely entertaining. So today we're kind of like, I already talked about the topic, but we're going to break it down. We don't know what the other one has picked or who we're going to mention. We're going to mention 4 wrestlers, and this isn't sets. We might talk about that. We might talk about a key card here and there, but this is just the names that if you're wanting to go out there and buy wrestling cards of, well, first off, I would hope you would like the talent first off, because I don't know about you, Tony, but I don't necessarily like buying cards of people I don't like.
True. I mean, I don't buy anything that I don't like. I mean, if I'm buying something I don't like, it's just something to flip because I know somebody else likes them.
And I think that's what a lot of times the investment side of the hobby, that's what people do. And when they do that, I mean, I understand the logic. And I also understand that you can do that at a certain price point and be okay. Like, for example, when I buy out collections, a lot of the times I buy stuff that's like random sports stuff I have zero interest in. But I'm buying it at a price point that I know I can make a margin on it. So even if I have to sit on it a while, what makes sense, whatever. But to go out there and spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on some of these cards that people do, like, I don't understand why someone would do that on singles if you don't really like or fan or believe in the talent. So what we're going to do is pick the names that each of us have selected, talk about them, and again, these are going to be names that you could probably feel pretty safe to put your money into, and we're just going to talk about that. So, do you want to start? You want me to start? How do you want to do this?
I think I want you to start because I'm going to be 100% transparent here. Up until we decided to have this conversation, I really didn't do a whole lot of homework on it, only because I'm just going to pick names that just come to my mind right away because I'm like,
that's the whole idea.
That's a winner. That's a winner. That, to me, that's a winner. So. I can start. You want me to? I mean, I want to start right away.
Yeah. And well, you can if you want, but I just want to preface, like, this isn't our favorite wrestlers. This isn't who's the best worker. This has nothing to do with that.
I'm going strictly by, if we're talking and using the dirty word investment, I'm looking at just strictly, what do I put my money in that I know years from now I'm going to cash out on?
Absolutely.
And without a doubt, for me, obviously, top of my choice is going to be Hogan.
Woo! That was my number one too. So
it's just number one is just I wrote them down as you were speaking our intro here. It's like that, and that's not the order. I just put them on. It came to my head, but I'm gonna have to put Hogan at number 1 for me. I'm not even gonna rank them 1 through 4. I'm not gonna rank them. I'm just gonna say Hogan for sure is someone that thankfully we still have the man alive today. But 50 years, 100 years down the road from now, it's like that. We still have cardboard. There's so many trees left to make cardboard.
That's a good point.
I mean, are they going to be? He's the Babe Ruth of wrestling, man. I mean, it doesn't matter what your feelings are about him, what my feelings are about him. He is who he is, and he is a household name, and people in other sports and other collectibles know who Hulk Hogan is. He is someone you can definitely. He's Apple, man. You buy in, and you're going to always make money.
Yeah, he is wrestling. Him and Vince McMahon. If Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan don't exist, wrestling does not exist like we know it today. It would still be around like it was in the carnivals or all, back in the 70s and the 40s.
It definitely be
it would be around.
A carny institution, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be around, but it wouldn't be. And I know there's a bunch of like WWE haters out there, which, whatever, that's your perspective, but just wrestling would not be where it is today, cards aside, if it wasn't for Hogan and Vince. So to play devil's advocate, and I will argue against myself here too, I think there's some people out there that think that Hogan is before a lot of the modern collectors' time. So maybe it's younger kids.
But so is Ty Cobb, and so is Babe Ruth. And there's a lot of people now who would pay big money, who are getting in, who are obviously not old enough to have seen Babe Ruth play or, Mickey Mantle play, that invest a lot of money in those people because they're bankable investments.
Right. And it's become like, we're not necessarily talking about specific cards here, but there are specific cards of those guys that have become pieces of art, like legitimate investments because of what it is and the aura that's built up around it. 82 All-Stars Hogan has become that in the wrestling card world.
It really has.
So I don't think
it's the highest priced card right now, I think, for a wrestling card. If I'm not mistaken, at the time we record this, I think it's like in the mid to upper 40,000 range for a PSA.
The high grades, yeah,
the high grades, and that's got nowhere to go but up. I think it's, even to this day, it's still undervalued.
And something else that speaking of undervalued, and it seems like we see these a lot, is Hogan autographs.
Yep.
Like he signs at the beach shop quite a bit.
And we're seeing more and more than lately too.
Right. But I still don't think, no matter how many of those get signed, no matter how many like certified pack pullable boxed autos come out, they're just too cheap. Like when you put those into comparisons of some of the greats of all other aspects, whether it's non-sport or sports, Hogan autos are just incredibly underpriced. Yeah, I mean,
Hogan, if you're saying as Jordan or a Gretzky or you name it. I mean, it's just, that's who he is. That's wrestling. I mean,
yeah. We've seen the lowest of the lows for him too. Like from his personal life and stuff he said in public, and it's never affected his price. Like I know I don't want to get into the woke crowd, but
sure.
That whole aspect of the world has not affected his card prices, which it has for Velveteen Dream, prime example. It did affect him. There's a couple other names of like more modern stars where stuff like that did affect their prices.
Not that he had a lot of, he was in demand to begin with, but Joey Ryan is another example.
Prime example.
He's never going to have, there's no value there. There's zero value there.
Yeah.
And rightfully so for those for those things. I mean, let's also be, we're not advocating anything here. It's like that, but just examples of, you do something wrong outside of the business like that. Not everybody's affected. There's certain guys, we've had this conversation before, where there's certain guys who are almost like, they're bulletproof in that sense, depending on what it is that they did, of course. I'm a big fan with my Cheap Trick tattoos like that. I'm hoping these guys somewhere down the road don't become like, that guy, he did this. Like, oh man, I got to get this laser down removed. I'm screwed. But the controversies did not hurt Hogan. The controversies didn't hurt other guys like Flair and stuff like that. But yeah.
All right.
Who do you got next on your list?
Speaking of controversies, speaking of stuff like that, Flair. I think actually he may be even higher on the rankings than Hogan.
I don't even have him on my list.
There you go. That's why we're doing this. I think
he's always bankable. I don't think that when you look at the value of the Hogan versus Flair stuff right now, and we already talk about how Hogan being undervalued, I would agree that Flair is also undervalued. I think the hobby as a whole is undervalued, obviously, but there's a huge gap in pricing between a Hogan and a Flair. Will Flair ever get to the Hogan status of where Hogan's at now? Yeah, but by then Hogan will already be someplace else higher.
For me, my argument here is that we talk about out of sight, out of mind with some of these wrestlers, and to some extent sports athletes with sports cards. But for me, Ric Flair is one of the legends who is constantly out there. He's got a pretty good social media account. He's always out there with sports teams and like giving pregame speeches. He does commercials. He's taking suplexes from Andrade in a pool, and then combine that, you've got Charlotte Flair, who's on top right now. There's that link there. So legendary wrestler. He's a pop culture icon. He's transcended into the rap world and been a huge influence for those guys. I can't say the same thing for Hogan.
No.
Now on the flip side,
come on, Savage had a rap album against him.
That's true, actually. Oh, I wonder if he's going to make the list. We'll probably make somebody mad if he doesn't. But anyway, side note. I think the whole pop culture thing, I think he's got Hogan beat. Now, does that mean that I think his cards are better than Hogan? Not necessarily. Maybe. I don't know. But I'm just I'm taking it from the pop culture standpoint that I think Flair is above Hogan from that perspective. I don't see too many rappers walking around making songs called Hulk Hogan Drip.
I get that. Yeah. I get it. But when you think of a household name, I think Hogan still beats Flair on that.
Within wrestling, yes. Yeah.
I think even without wrestling.
I don't know.
I think
it's a debate.
I think you get people out there who I think my wife's a good example. I think until before she met me, maybe she knew who Flair was, but she definitely knows who Hogan is. I
think that's an interesting point too. I think more people know Flair now than they did when he was wrestling. Because I
think you're right. That I do agree with you with, because I think he's again, the commercials being out there. He Charlotte. There's a lineage connection there now that people can identify with, Charlotte Flair, Ric Flair, so and the woos never go away with everybody. You go to any arena and there's a woo with kids who probably never even seen Ric Flair in their life. There's dad's wooing, so I'm woo, Yep. So it's just there's that connection.
Yep. So that's my second, since we both had Hogan. So your turn.
I'm going with the other obvious, The Rock.
Yep.
I have him on my list strictly because you want to talk about that transcends all demographics. There is no bigger superstar on this planet right now than The Rock, and one of, if not the highest paid actor in Hollywood, pumping out for the majority, profitable films.
One of the biggest presence on Instagram as well.
He has the biggest presence of Instagram. I think he's 200 something million people, so whatever it is. So I mean, he's just there's somebody who transcends wrestling, that has dipped himself into movies and TV and music, MMA stuff, as being introducing people and getting involved in that. And then we have the aspect of hey, in 2024, does he run for office? 2028, does he run for office? I mean, where does his star power end? I mean, it's just I think that's the biggest name there is in wrestling, connected with wrestling right now, currently. Whereas Hogan, it might be the Babe Ruth. I think right now you've got, The Rock would be what? Mike Trout. I don't know. I mean, who's the biggest name out there that's modern in sports?
LeBron.
Probably. Perfect example. There you go. LeBron. Maybe because he's been around a little longer, maybe he'd be a Kobe, something like that. I don't know.
Yep.
It's just money. I mean, I think that's going to be. I think Hogan will be the first six-figure card, pure, true wrestling card. I don't count Rock's Bumblebee football card,
sure.
One that once sold at $90,000, whatever it was, during the craze of the pandemic. I think it'll probably eventually be a six-figure card. I don't consider it a wrestling card. But Rock might someday get there with a Panini sticker getting 33,000 at one point. Of
Yeah.
course, that's dropped off tremendously. So, kudos for you, Rob England, for getting that
Yeah.
33 plus, because I don't think we're going to see that for a while. But I don't know. He's definitely on my list.
So he was third on my list. So I'll just go ahead and take my third option to talk about this. Everything you just said, I agree with, but I also want to just throw some extra information in there. I dabble in the sports card world, again, not because I buy a lot of it, but because I like to learn. And I learn a lot from listening to a lot of these dealers and the top names in the content creation world and people that are, making moves. And one thing I keep seeing is a lot of these guys, if wrestling is mentioned or wrestling cards, it seems like most of them are gravitated to The Rock. It's not Hogan, it's not Flair, it's The Rock. And they like, oh yeah, I remember watching them during the Attitude Era. And and then of course the movies and the Instagram and everything you just said.
He's 100% identifiable for today's generation as well.
Yeah, 100%. That's it.
He's relevant from the 90s, from wrestling till he got away from wrestling and started doing movies, and now he's still in the movie things, and he's entertainment. He's an entertainment industry himself. Owning companies in the clothing business, in the tequila business, like that. I mean, he's got fingerprints and everything like that. He's everywhere.
The $7, I think it's $7 production. $7. Like that story it's a huge motivator to younger people also. Yep. So you've got that. And then the other thing I will put on there, and I really want to try to steer away from talking about this kind of stuff, but there is a younger crowd that can identify with him and for what he stands for, the greater good of human beings, that is a little bit different than like what we just talked about Hogan or what we just talked about Flair, about the past of stuff that's happened, that's come out about them. We haven't heard or seen that with The Rock. In fact, we've seen just the opposite, about how he's gone out and helped people that helped him coming up in the business.
I think the closest we can get to that is, it's funny you say that. I just recently saw something on like a Facebook feed of one of those now or whatever it's called, like that,
mm-hmm.
Kind of thing, where they have like these features, and they talked about The Rock. He did have some controversy in the sense of when and how he left his wife and met his current wife, and that there might have been some infidelity going on there, kind of things like that. But he kept his current woman kind of in the shadows for a while until there was a little bit of stuff like that. But again, it didn't seem to really, no one really talks about that, because it's just, I think he's come clean about it, my understanding from that little article I read.
And it doesn't make it right. But when you compare that story to like what we heard about Flair, it's it's totally different.
It's night and day.
It's I'm going to piggyback on what you said. He's the probably most identifiable wrestler to a younger audience currently.
Yeah.
Like as a legend perspective. So
like if wrestling just started, 20 years ago, he'd be the Babe Ruth of wrestling.
Yeah. Yep. He would definitely be it. So we've covered 3 of mine now. So I guess technically we're back to you with your third.
Okay. Yeah. My third, I'm going with Andre.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I'm going with Andre because, again, he doesn't really. First off, it's Andre. When you talk about the All-Stars, he's one of those 3, of the All-Stars that really sell well, and that's the iconic set we always gravitate back towards. But it's Andre. He has transcended into pop culture because we have the Obey shirts, and we have posters, things like that. Princess Bride, people still remember him from that. There's people who weren't even wrestling fans who go, I like that big guy from Princess Bride. So
I specifically remember him in like a Honeycomb cereal commercial.
Yeah, Honeycomb cereal. Yeah. He was, Bigfoot and $6 Million Man. He's done things like that, but it's Andre the Giant. This, larger than life creation, the 8th wonder of the world kind of thing. And I just think that, again, as a whole, I've always said, and I'll always continue to say it, wrestling as a whole, when it comes to trading cards, is an undervalued market, completely from the top to bottom, undervalued.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We can have conversation about, well, who do you think is the most undervalued wrestling card? Well, okay, well, we have our top guys we know who are I still say are undervalued. Well, but here's the bottom one.
This is also why we create content, because if you want to get into those discussions, it's an endless discussion. We'll have material for years.
Yep. which I love.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm ever going to get tired of talking about him anyway. So like,
Yeah.
I've been passionate about it for my whole life, basically. So, but it's Andre the Giant, man. It's just he's a larger than life character that I just think that over the years, I mean, he's already passed away back in what, 95, somewhere around that time, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was 94, 95,
Yeah.
I think.
So it's just, and we still talk about him to this day. We still see people know who Andre the Giant is. Maybe they're not even fans of him from wrestling. Like they don't identify him as a wrestler. They identify him as just, oh, Andre the Giant. Oh, that big guy from this movie kind of thing. He's had some memorable things out there that have put him into the mainstream media kind of thing over the years. And I just think that, and the stuff I hit is so rare already. It's already so rare because, you know, there's a guy I follow up on Twitter. I wish I remember his name now. Main Event Memorabilia, something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And he, an incredible collection of stuff he has. And always posting stuff for Andre. And it's like, this guy's got to have everything there is out there of Andre, because like you don't
It's
see
amazing.
a lot of stuff. It's amazing stuff that he has. And you just don't see a lot of Andre autographs. You don't see a lot of different versions of his autograph back before he was on the Giant. It's just he's just someone that is, no pun intended, just a huge name.
Nice pun.
Thank you, folks. I'll be here all week.
I think the only like, I can't disagree with anything you said. I think just looking at it from an outsider's perspective, though, like he fails in comparison huge as far as like notoriety to your average your average person is going to say The Rock, is going to say you know, they may not say Ric Flair, maybe, I don't know, younger people might, they'll say Hogan, they may say Macho Man. You know, there's some other names we can mention, but when I'm talking like wrestling with casual people, Andre the Giant is rarely brought up. But on the flip side, the people who know wrestling, like they know these Andre cards. It's just what you said. You know, we're seeing some really cool stuff out there that people have of Andre, whether it's signed or, you know, maybe a higher grade or a refractor that you just don't see very often. Lots of good.
Would you put Andre the Giant in the category, if you want to put it in terms of sports, like, if you're into baseball, you know, the holy grail of baseball, so like, you know, a Honus Wagner card.
Yeah.
Would you kind of compare it to be like a Honus Wagner? Like, if I'm into collectibles, but I don't know what is a Honus Wagner card? What's that? You know, maybe they say what's Andre the Giant.
I think you could put that 82 All-Stars up there. Yeah. You could put that like as an identifiable, but like from a talent, if you want to reference to vintage baseball, I would be more like a Ty Cobb or a Shoeless Joe Jackson. You know, he's somebody.
Jackson. I was going to say Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Somebody that is like the hobby knows, baseball fans know, but the average person might not associate with like a Babe Ruth or a Mantle. Sure. Like, because even the average person doesn't even really know Honus Wagner. Like if you mention baseball cards, they're probably going to mention King Griffey Jr. before they mention a Honus Wagner. So I think that's just my perspective on the Andre stuff. But we haven't, again, we weren't doing this show to talk about specific cards, but I think there are specific Andre cards, even some of the more modern stuff that, you know, has really good value and good future.
Cool. Who do you got for number 4?
Okay. This is where I'm throwing the curveball into everything.
Are you throwing a curveball just because you want to be fancy with your pitching, or because you're throwing a curveball because, you know, you believe in this?
I'm not trying to be those people that we always talk about that like the band before they got mainstream.
Gotcha. All right.
Because do
not tell me Killer Cross.
no. My choice here has actually become even more mainstream, and that's why I want to pick it. But it's not a single talent; it's a mutual fund. You know, I'm always talking about buying mutual funds where you don't know what to pick, but if you pick all of them and get them together, you should be able to balance yourself. Okay. And my pick for number 4 is the top, like, take your choice of the top current women. Everybody likes something different. Okay. Alexa, Charlotte, Becky, Sasha. Mm-hmm. You know, take your pick. But they're modern cards, and I don't even necessarily say you want to go for the rookie card, sure, but just like the modern, flashy, shiny autos of this talent. Like for wrestling fans, I guess we've become a little jaded as far as like the time frame. Like we're still in the infancy of real women's wrestling, and the more I watch modern product, and especially now that Cross is not on WWE anymore, the more I'm watching of even AEW, but definitely WWE and NXT, like the women have better characters, they're better wrestlers, and their promos are better. So they're just like they're getting better and better. And men's wrestling from a cardboard perspective has been around for hundreds of years. Not so much with the women. So, and I think the women have a broader audience. I think there are more younger girls and women out there that might start collecting because they can relate, possibly. But it's hard for me to pick one because I can't pick Charlotte over Becky. I can't pick, Bianca Belair over Sasha. Asuka's up there. I think Scarlett. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased, but I still think she's huge. There's just like, of course, there's some names that we could probably rule out. That there's like probably 10 different names of just like huge women's.
Are you
talent.
sticking with modern and only the current product, or
Yes.
do you go back even to Attitude Era and say like a Trish Stratus
No.
or Alita?
No. I think it's the modern. Like, there's nothing wrong with those, but I think it's just these modern ones that have set history. The first women to headline WrestleMania, the first women to headline a pay-per-view period, the first winner of the women's Royal Rumble. Like, there's so many like.
But something could be said for those people back then because Trish and Alita, they were the first women to headline a Monday Night Raw.
They could be. They could be, but I don't think.
And they still, and especially Trish, she still holds some high value on some of her stuff.
Well, and we're going to talk, I guess it would be our next week's show about some of the Flair stuff. That's a whole different discussion when we're talking about that stuff. But I think for modern collectors, if you're going to look back in 20, 30, 40 years, some of this shiny autoed parallel stuff of some of the modern women, if you can pick but I don't know who to pick. That's why I said it's like a mutual fund. Like, here, grab one of these, grab one of these, grab one of these. They're all very affordable. And I don't know where these prices go, but I just don't see any downside to any of this.
Not really a curveball, but more of like a safety net there. It's like
maybe a change up.
Yeah, that's a change up for sure. I feel like it's a screwball. Yeah, I can totally relate and see what you're saying. It's like that. I think time's going to tell, which of these, whether it be the 4 horsewomen type things or the Alexa Blisses like that, where they're going to stand over time. But the TNA factor in the hobby itself has always been, since they started putting women on the cards like that, in the late 90s, with the whole Attitude Era like that, Comic Images and Sable and things like that. That stuff has always sold well because of the TNA factor, which is a sad thing. And I agree with you. I think that today's product, women are the better wrestlers.
It's not even close.
Better promos, more interesting characters to see. Now, I don't even watch, but I still gravitate towards like watching the highlights. Like, I'm more interested in seeing what Becky Lynch did than I kind of am on what Riddle did. I just kind of, I am. I'm just.
If you want to, at the time of recording, if you want to compare champions, Big E, Becky.
Oh, Becky.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's nothing. It's not a knock on Big E. I just don't think that he's being written as an interesting character right now. It doesn't appeal to me. Right. Whereas I'd rather watch, Bianca Belair, or I'd rather watch Sasha Banks, or Becky, or the 4 horsemen, basically. Right. When Bayley comes back, I like to watch her too. I thought her character when she went heel was very interesting. And she played it well, especially as someone who used to watch her when she trained all the time for AWS and stuff like that back in the day, being like the happy girl. Side,
right. Yeah. So I saw on Twitter somebody referenced her character now as the angry soccer mom.
which is
very accurate.
Yeah. I might just change her name to Karen. Sorry, Karen. But I agree with you. Those are good points, and I agree with you on that. So yeah, you can't go wrong with any of those girls, anyways.
Well, I guess you could if you pick the wrong one. That's why I said just pick a little bit of everything.
Spread it out. Yep. I've got $100. I'm gonna throw 20 here and 20 there and 20 here and 20 there.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So yeah. Gotcha.
All right, you're up with. Are we on number 4 for you?
I'm on number 4 for me, yeah. And my number 4 is actually a tie. I don't know which way to go, so maybe you can help me lean which way I want to go.
All right.
But I'm keeping record of who are people. I'm just going to put down here girls for you. Perverts. Okay, so for me, it's a toss-up. And I'm going to lean towards one, I think, more than the other, but I'm kind of almost a tie for me. And I'm going to say Cena / Vince.
Oh man, I love Vince stuff.
because the Vince stuff is I think as collectors, even though, and I'm leaning more towards Vince because I think Cena's still going to be, 20 years down the road. I see him still being like, man, there's gonna be a lot of people who are like, that guy carried that company for so many years. And championships aside, still there was characters. Half the crowd loved him, half the crowd hated him. But he's a big name, and I don't know where the rest of his career is going to go when it comes to movies. I have no idea. I don't know what it's going to be, beyond wrestling. So I think he's a safe, very affordable investment at this point. I think he's still very undervalued. I can get into him for very cheap, and I can probably come out, 100, 200% on my investment, 5-10 years down the road. I don't know. Vince, I think, is criminally underrated and undervalued. And up until the last couple of years, never signed for nothing, never signed. Yeah. And now we have autographs, parallels, one-of-ones, refractors, all these amazing, cool-looking cards of him. That this is a guy with Hogan, no Vince, no Hogan, kind of thing. It's just, when this guy, he's in his 70s now, when he's long passed away, so people are gonna be like, man, I really should have invested in this guy more when I had the opportunity back then. I think this is a huge, huge overlooked investment piece is Vince.
I think both of them are.
I'm leaning more towards Vince than Cena. It's like that. I think Cena's a safe, gradual incline, I think, over time, where I think that Vince, God forbid, when the day he passes away, skyrocket. I didn't think his stuff's going to go through the roof.
Well, from my perspective, I'm going to tie this back to culture again, because that's what I just keep. There's something that I always look at the wrestling cards, like, if I got some cool Road Warrior stuff, like, all right, the average person doesn't know who these guys are, and that's fine. I like the card, but then there are other stuff that we're talking about investing. There are other cards that I will buy because I like them, but I also know that they're pop culture. So if I want to get out of them,
I think of Vince McMahon. When you say the McMahon family, I think people can I think there's a good number, not everybody, not a Hogan level or a Rock level, but I think even then, even Stone Cold, like I was playing with my head, putting Stone
he didn't
Cold
make either of our lists. That's amazing.
And I think he's still very much an investment piece, obviously at that. But we're looking for my Mount Rushmore of what I would want to invest. If I'm taking my $1 million and investing in cards, and I'm going to spread it across these 4 names. And I think Vince is just, again, criminally underrated. And I think a lot of people out there know who the McMahons are. Just Vince McMahon. Oh yeah, that guy who owns the WWF. Well, it used to be WWF back in the day. It's WWE now, Grandma. Right. It's just, I just think that I think it's a name that's out there. It's a name out there that does. I think it does transcend more than just wrestling.
I'll start with Vince. I think if people like me and you, people who are diehard wrestling fans that have been for years, you're absolutely right. I think that people are going to want these, and they're not going to be able to get them because they're going to be so expensive at some point. And he doesn't sign very much. It's just like you said. But I think the modern fan, even if they go back and look like 20 years from now, like hypothetically, Vince has passed away and they look at this, I think like he's, with some of these modern fans, right or wrong, I think he's tarnished their view of the company so much that they don't want anything to do with him. Now, it doesn't have any, I'm still with you. I still think his prices are going to go like way up. And I think people are going to be kind of left behind because they're not going to be able to afford them, because us as the diehard, long-term wrestling fans. And it just goes back to like the vintage baseball thing. Like, it's not the flavor of the month, but it's also showing what's some of the most valuable stuff out there. So,
and you tell me other owners of organizations out there that people clamor for and collect that are names.
Rare. I can't think of any right offhand.
I mean, is there a lot of people chasing Mark Cuban cards? I mean, really? I mean, is he like gotta have it, and then like 20 years after he passes, are people gonna be like going after and clamoring for his stuff? There's gonna always be a spike in interest in people's in the collectability of people, like that. And the general rule is that the peak value of someone after they passed away is usually a 72-hour window before it plateaus out, and then it hits this marks like that until maybe some sort of made-for-TV movie about them get put out, or a movie documentary gets put out about them. Right. Then maybe more interest gets put into them again. But I mean, I can't think of any other organization top of my head. So, people can go ahead and make comments on this episode if they want to, and, and say oh, well, how about this guy? But,
Yes,
I
we
think
do
it's
encourage your comments, by the way. Just make sure
100%.
tag us on
Please.
social media. The more you guys get involved, the more it can kind of tell us what you guys want to hear and just get a good banter going. We recently did a Twitter Spaces show, starting more of those, just trying to get the community more involved. So sorry to take a sidebar there.
Yeah, right. But keep a lookout on all of our channels, both for Zhan and myself, and our joint one of Worlds Collide, because we'll be putting things. Sometimes it might be like, hey, tonight we're doing this, it might be. And we'll probably have because I think the Twitter Spaces is going to work for us and a lot of people in the future of having like quick, easy discussions real quick about whatever's on their mind at the moment. Because a lot of times I'll text you like something I'm really heated about this. Wish we were having a podcast tonight to talk about it. It's like, and then by the time you go, oh, I put it on our notes and like, I'm kind of.
By the time we get there, it's yeah.
But sidetrack there. But I don't know. For me, we're talking about specifically in the wrestling world, in the trading card world, what to invest in. I think Vince is going to be something a lot of people are going to wish they actually bought in now, myself included. Like, I'm not a Vince McMahon collector. I don't think if I was looking for investment pieces, I wish I could go out and have some extra money to invest in some Vince stuff and sit on it, but it's not my focal point. But I think those who are looking for things to invest in for wrestling cards, he's someone that I would recommend to. Yep. If I'm with TD Waterhouse and I'm telling you what to invest in, I'm telling you right now, I'm TV Waterhouse.
Yeah, there you go. There's your new gimmick.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way on that. Like, I was just, playing devil's advocate from what I've seen. And that's also what I want to do with John Cena, since you're talking about him.
Yeah.
I think the modern wrestling fan just is tired of him and they think he's cheesy and all of these things, but people don't understand the power of nostalgia. I keep saying that on like every single piece of content I put out about how powerful nostalgia is for, what we consume now as adults, what we like to buy in cardboard form or any other kind of collectibles. And 20 years from now, people are going to look at John Cena. Oh, I used to watch that. I had all of the Cena gear when I was 5 years old. And, they're going to go back on the network if they're still wrestling fans. And they're going to think of Cena like we think of Hogan.
Yeah, there's a lot. And, you can't deny the man's outreach to people outside of the wrestling as well.
Pop culture. Yep.
Pop culture right there. I mean, again, movies, not the Rock level type thing, obviously, but, Make-A-Wish Foundation, for crying out loud, more than any other celebrity in history he's done. That touches families.
Yep.
And families remember that kind of stuff. And then those families, kids, the rest of their family goes on to acknowledge that.
Well, and WWE acknowledges it, which makes people like, he's kind of more collectible because he's a bigger, like, people can, maybe they're not as big of a fan of him in the ring, but they see all the stuff he's doing, plus his movies, plus this, plus commercials. So it's all kind of ties together, like you said.
Yeah. So it's always really hard for me. I was putting the Cena Vince in the same thing because they both popped in my mind when I was thinking of, because the first three, I'll be honest with you, the first three were like, boom, boom, boom. No problem for me. That was my first three. Then that last one was like, oh, do I throw Flair in there? Do I throw Savage in there? Do I throw, do I throw my boy Kurt Angle in there? Gold, there's all these numbers of people I could throw in. It's like that. Do I pick someone like a Roman Reigns, just like that? Or do I go gravitate towards someone in AEW who's like in its infancy as a company? And, do I take a Chris Jericho? A lot of different variables. And I thought, all of a sudden then Cena, boom, and then Vince, for some reason, the two just hit me at the same time. I got to put them down. They're kind of a tie for me.
Right. And that's why we wanted to do this show today, is it proves a point of how quick would we come up with these names, because I think that really tells you, I had my list in like 5 minutes or less, like, because that just,
I put my list in your opening
there you go
of this podcast.
that was the whole idea of today's show. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Please let us know on, tag us in social media. Please share the show. Let's get more involved. Me and Tony are trying to get more people involved in what we're doing, as far as just.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, specifically for this episode, I want to see other people's comments. I want to know what your top four are. What do you think? Who do you think your top four are? I mean, you're probably going to share some of the same ones that we have, obviously, but maybe you have a dark horse that we're not. Didn't think about that one. I'd love to hear people's opinions on that kind of stuff. Love it.
Yeah, and again, this is not your four favorite, because some of the people we talked about aren't necessarily my favorite. but it's the top 4 Mount Rushmore that you would invest your money in long term, short term, doesn't matter. It's just a safe place of something that you believe in. So
yeah, I'm giving you each $100,000. Tell me how you want to invest your $100,000 spread over 4 different names that you think is going to give you a nice ROI.
Yep, that's it. Make sure you tag us, Tony. Let them know where you can tag. They can tag you.
All right. Anyways, just go to wrestlingtradingcards.com. On the bottom of every page is a link to every bit of social media that I can muster to handle.
And that's a lot out there. So,
yeah. How about you?
At Zhan Morning on most social platforms, Wrestling with Cards on YouTube, Wrestling with Cards the podcast. Please, this show, WrestlingTradingCards.com, YouTube, and on audio, because I know you're catching up on Anchor with that.
I got to episode 35 as of today.
Yep. So if you like to listen to the WTC shows on the audio form, because I know there are people out there that like, hey, I'm an audio only or I'm a video only. So we're trying to give you guys both the audio and the video over the course of time. You know, it takes time to do all this, but you know, the more support you show and the more involved you get, you know, the more stuff we can put out. So we just want to encourage you guys to get more involved with the show and tag us, share this, let us know what you think. If we suck, if we're awesome, if you want to hear something specifically, just let us know. Thank you guys for listening. Please leave us a 5-star. No, me and Tony recorded this in the Tokyo Dome today, so we need a 6-star review on whatever platform you are listening to this on. Please subscribe to the show. Check us out on social media, like I said. And until next time, see ya.
Later.